Atletico Madrid signed Julian Alvarez from Manchester City for £82 million. Hi there, welcome along to the transfer show. Julian Alvarez swaps Manchester for Madrid. The £82 million fee makes it a club record sale for City, and it's the fifth biggest sale to a foreign club in Premier League history. Also on the way for you tonight, could it be third time lucky for Newcastle as they submit a new offer for Crystal Palace defender Mark Gahey? Matthijs de Ligt and Nusa Marazoui arrive in Manchester ahead of their moves to Manchester United from Bayern Munich. Mazraoui. Didn't say it quite correctly. I apologise. Doma Chef and Mark McAdam are here. Welcome along to you. You got the blue memo. Well done. Good, that went down well. Right, let's get started then. The biggest deal of the winter so far, Julian Alvarez, no longer a Manchester City player. He has gone where, Mark? And just explain why he's gone as well.
Yeah, huge deal. From Manchester City to Atletico Madrid. He's swapped the rain for the sunshine of Spain. And this was a deal that was confirmed by Manchester City in the last hour or so. And it's a huge deal, like you said, at the top of the show. We understand he signed a 6-year contract. Now, there was a little bit of a doubt because we believed at one stage that there were dominoes that linked, obviously, Julian Alvarez and potential deals happening at Atletico Madrid. But confirmation of this one was what we were being told by Manchester City. There was no connection, no concerns, no issues, and the deal has been confirmed by both football clubs. It brings to an end, actually, what has been a really successful 2 years for Julian Alvarez at Manchester City, for both City and Argentina. Not only has he won 2 Premier League titles, he's won a World Cup, a Copa America. The last 2 years since his arrival from River Plate for £14 million has been littered with silverware. So this represents an incredible piece of business by Manchester City. They've made a huge profit on their investment. I
can't even work it out in my head what that profit is.
Yeah,
in terms of the money.
It's in excess of 68
million.
Well done.
There you go.
Good.
See, that's why he's here. The man with the brains.
I was trying to do it on my fingers and thumbs.
Economics degree.
Really?
Did you? Yeah. Wow.
I didn't even get a maths GCSE, so there you go.
Oh, well done.
I think one of the things that stood out for me is in the last hour, with this statement from Manchester City, there's a lot of mutual respect between the club and Alvarez. They accepted this was an opportunity that he wanted to take.
Yeah.
This was money they couldn't quite simply turn down. And it was a really classy goodbye from the football club. So, yeah, massive opportunity for him in La Liga. The 24-year-old's days at City, over.
You did the maths, so it is £82 million, a huge bit of business then for Manchester City.
Yeah, they don't half sell well, Manchester City. Whenever they bring in players, they always seem to make a profit on players. They bought him for £14 million.
That's crazy.
This deal is worth £82 million. That's including performance-related add-ons. So he'll have to fulfil certain conditions, but some of those conditions will be very, very achievable. So if they end up getting the £82 million, he will have done well. Manchester City will have done well out of the deal, and Atletico Madrid, even though it is 82 million, will probably see it as a good deal as well because the success he would have brought himself and the football club as well. And one other thing I would say, when it comes to players at Manchester City, as much as, you know, pundits and experts might say, why are City letting this player go? Look how brilliant he's been. Whenever a player does want to go, you don't usually find Manchester City or Pep Guardiola publicly saying he can't go. It's if the player's not happy there, and if he wants to go and the clubs can get the deal that they want, I'm not going to stand in that player's way, because if he doesn't want to be here, then I don't want an unhappy player here. So you would think that, you know, sometimes a player like Julian Alvarez, they would actually say, no, actually, there's no way he's going. But even with a player like him, they will be willing to say, if he doesn't want to be here, he can go, but as long as the price is right, and obviously the price is right, £82 million from a £14 million outlay.
Yeah, and it always feels that they never regret it as well, dare I say, Manchester City. I know there was a lot of talk about Cole Palmer. Maybe they might regret that one in the future, but when they do let a player go,
because there's lots of talk now of whether Manchester City are going to go back into the market.
Yeah, what do they do with
striker or bring in a replacement for Alvarez. But this will also be a nod to the faith that Pep Guardiola has in the remaining players in his squad, especially a player like Oscar Bob, who's come into the team and was performing so well at pre-season. I think he was man of the match in the Community Shield when Manchester City beat United on penalties on Saturday. So Pep Guardiola, he'll know what he's doing. City will know what they're doing. So even if people will say this is going to be a huge miss, they always seem to find a way.
OK, let's turn our attention to Chelsea, because this is only a short show. We can talk more in detail about City perhaps in the 7 o'clock show that you can watch from 7 o'clock. Cryptic. Let's talk about Chelsea, because, Darmish, there's a domino effect going on here. So just explain why these three players are involved.
Right, first of all, this player here, Samu Omorodion from Atletico Madrid. There are now issues with that deal that would have taken him from Atletico Madrid to Chelsea. Remember, a deal had been agreed between the clubs for around £34.5 million for Omorodion to go from Atletico to Chelsea. However, Chelsea have so far been unable to agree personal terms with the player. So currently, that deal is off. You mentioned the dominoes. That deal needs to happen for Conor Gallagher to complete his move from Chelsea to Atletico Madrid. We do know that a £36 million deal has been agreed between the clubs. Personal terms in his case are not a problem. That has been agreed as well. He was even photographed, you'll recall, last week in the Wanda Metropolitano Stadium. And the caption didn't say it was a done deal. It just said he's here while Chelsea and Atletico try and finalise this move. Then we were just wondering, the formal announcement is going to be imminent, but it never came. So we were wondering what's going wrong here. And now we know the reason why that formal announcement hasn't come is because the Omorodion deal has broken down, hence why Conor Gallagher cannot at this stage complete that move from Atletico Madrid to Atletico Madrid from Chelsea. Now, Atletico Madrid don't want this deal to collapse. Chelsea definitely do not want this deal to collapse, because by offering him that 2-year contract, they were effectively saying, Conor Gallagher, you can go. We've got the money that we would want from you. It is pure profit because you're an academy product. They want this deal to happen. So now it feels like a bit of a scramble. What are Chelsea going to do to try and get this deal done? Now, initially, the Julian Alvarez deal was linked with these two, but that was separate. It was these two deals that had to happen together for both of those deals to go through. So now, for Conor Gallagher to go to Atletico Madrid now need to bring in a player to the mix that Chelsea will have to take for Conor Gallagher to be able to go to Atletico Madrid. Exactly that, man. So now Chelsea are exploring a deal with Atletico to try and bring Joao Felix back to Stamford Bridge. You'll recall that he had a loan spell in the second half of the 2022-2023 season. I think he scored 4 goals in 14 starts in all competitions.
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
It wasn't, but this is the deal that would have to happen now as it stands for the Conor Gallagher deal to go through. So this domino seems to have fallen by the wayside. We've got another domino in effect now.
OK, like I say, we will discuss this in further detail at 7 o'clock. I'm going to get to Newcastle because, Mark, you've got some details on Mark Gahey here. What's happening here, then?
Yeah, a player we know that Newcastle like. They've had not 1, but 2 offers already rejected by Crystal Palace. And over the course of the weekend, they've gone in for a 3rd time. Now, we don't know the details of this 3rd offer as of yet. We understand the 2nd offer that was rejected was worth around £50 million. We understand Crystal Palace wants a minimum of £65 million for the 24-year-old centre-back. This is a position that Eddie Howe and Newcastle have targeted as a key area they'd like to strengthen over the course of this summer. And Gahey ticks the boxes, the profile, the experience in the Premier League. You saw for Gareth Southgate in England just how effective he was on the international stage. So he'd certainly be adding a lot of quality. However, they need to try and find some mutual ground with Crystal Palace to get this deal done. We're just waiting to see what happens with this 3rd offer. And then, of course, Newcastle, if that one gets rejected, will have to decide whether they want to go back in for a 4th time or potentially look at other targets. He has 2 years left on his current Crystal Palace deal. Steve Parish, at the moment, appears to be standing quite firm on his valuation of the player. Yeah,
and you might not know the answer to this, but do you get the sense that Palace actually don't want to sell him, because he is such an epic performer for them, and actually without him, this short to the end of the window, you know, they'd need a really good replacement, wouldn't they?
Well, of course, it's getting the balance right. If they lose a player of his quality from the starting 11, they have to have someone lined up already, in theory, to come in to replace Gahey. So that's part number 1. They need to have the sort of ducks lined up if they do lose someone. I think they would love to keep Mark Gahey at the club for a long period of time. They obviously would potentially offer him a new deal, improve his wages, make it lucrative for him to stay in South London. But of course, the opportunity to play at maybe a bigger club, maybe play European football under an excellent head coach in Eddie Howe, who's developed players and has got a track record of doing so. So yeah, Crystal Palace will stand firm. And ultimately, Steve Parish, as we've seen, will only do what's right for the football club. And if it makes business sense to sell the player, they'll sell him. If they can find a deal, they'll find a deal. You could say, look at what happened with Elise. You know, there was a lot of talk about him potentially leaving. They managed to get him to sign a new deal, which had a very different release clause. He gave another year's worth of service to the club and then eventually got his big money move to Bayern Munich. You could see potentially something happen very similar here. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on, but the third offer, as of yet, not been rejected.
All right, let's turn our attentions to Manchester United then. Matthijs de Ligt is in Manchester, apparently.
Yes, he arrived at Carrington this morning. That was after the two clubs agreed a deal worth €45 million with €5 million in add-ons. Personal terms not expected to be a problem on this situation. And Manchester United in the market for a centre-back, a right-sided centre-back. And they've got someone that actually has exchanged hands for a lot of cash. You can see him departing the airport in Germany here, thanks to our pictures from Sky Germany. He actually arrived at Juventus in the summer of 2019 for €75 million.
That's not an overnight bag as well. I mean, it looks like he's here to stay for some time.
He's here for a little while, isn't he? That's
not just
in-and-out jobbing.
No.
The following, in 2022, that summer, he went from Juventus to Bayern Munich for €77 million. So you have to look on the surface of this and say, potentially, Manchester United have got a really exciting 25-year-old centre-back that's got great experience in European circles. You can see him arriving here for his medical this morning and just waiting for things to develop. We're waiting for official confirmation that medical's been completed. But he also arrived, Vicky, with a friend, Nusa Mazraoui.
Yes. On the face of it, the de Ligt deal looks a lot more straightforward than the Mazraoui deal because it's a single deal. It is worth €50 million, 45 plus 5. Whereas the Mazraoui deal, we always knew that it was dependent upon Aaron Wan-Bissaka leaving Manchester United for West Ham United. Now, both of these deals are now progressing because Aaron Wan-Bissaka has completed the first part of his medical. He's close to completing his medical full stop during today. There were a few issues late last night about whether this deal was going to happen because there was a bit of a stumbling block with his exit terms at Manchester United, but that all got agreed and he was given permission to do that medical, which he started this morning. Mazraoui, of course, as Mark mentioned there, he is in Manchester as well. He's been having a medical alongside Matthijs de Ligt. That deal is worth €20 million in total. So it's €15 million initial fee plus €5 million in performance-related add-ons. So it looks like, unlike the Chelsea situation, that all the dominoes are falling into place for Manchester United here. Matthijs de Ligt looks like that one will get done. Mazraoui to United from Bayern as well should get done, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka from Manchester United to West Ham United, that one should get done as well. I think we're now just waiting, as Mark mentioned there, the medicals to finish and then those formal announcements to be made. Just a couple of other lines to bring you from each club. An interesting one from Manchester United, because I was told today that the Everton forward, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he was one of a number of forwards that Manchester United have discussed during this transfer window. As it stands, it should be said here that it's not a priority position as it stands for Manchester United. They are looking, of course, we've been talking about a right-back, a centre-back. They're also looking at central midfield as well, which I think we'll elaborate on in the 7 o'clock show. But also Calvert-Lewin has entered the final year of his Everton contract, so there could be a situation there. United are unlikely to go into the market for another forward player. Remember, they've already brought in Joshua Zirkzee in this transfer window, unless there are sales in that area. So maybe just one to keep an eye on in the last couple of weeks. And a line from West Ham United, we're talking about Aaron Wan-Bissaka and all the other signings that they've made during the week. Some people have said they've won the transfer window, West Ham United. They've made so many good signings. There's a potential departure which has kind of hit the buffers a little bit, and it's Kurt Zouma. We brought you the news late last week that Kurt Zouma was going to be having a medical with the UAE club, Shabab Al Ahly. He had that medical over the weekend, but that medical highlighted a couple of issues. So now West Ham United and Shabab Al Ahly are now in ongoing talks, because there's still a willingness from all three parties to get this deal done, because the personal terms have been agreed and a mutual termination of Kurt Zouma's contract with West Ham United for the final year, that has been agreed as well. Kurt Zouma, he remains in Dubai, just awaiting developments on what's going to happen next.
So I guess they'd drop the price. That's the kind of negotiation, because the
No, because a mutual termination of the contract, so he'll effectively be a free transfer. This is to do with the medical now. So
how does that get resolved then? So
that they will have to decide what that's these ongoing talks are all about. I think West Ham United will probably put it to the UAE club. Look at the amount of appearances he's made. Yes, he's had a few injury problems, but his injury record and his appearance record is still pretty good. So they will try and discuss that with the Dubai club. But then there's also the element of potentially, could it become a loan deal and they don't mutually terminate the contract? And if it becomes a loan deal for this final year of his contract, then West Ham United could then contribute to the wages. So that's how it could be resolved as well.
Thank you. Thanks for clearing that up for me. Look, Arne Slot, yet to make any signings for Liverpool. Are we any closer to anything happening there at the moment, Mark?
At the moment, Liverpool are patiently awaiting a response from Martin Zubimendi, the Real Sociedad 25-year-old midfielder. We know this is an area of the pitch that Liverpool and Arne Slot are looking to potentially strengthen over the course of this summer window. Now, they are happy to pay the release clause, which we understand is worth £51 million. Okay. However, it's up to the player to decide whether he wants to potentially make this move and effectively put this release clause into action himself. Real Sociedad want the player to stay. They don't want to lose the player. He's a big part of what they've done there, and Liverpool are big fans of the player. There has been a number of clubs over the course of the last few seasons that have tried to prize Zubimendi away from Real Sociedad, and he's turned down those opportunities. Liverpool's a very different club. It's one of the biggest institutions in world football, and of course, new era under Arne Slot. You could see this being an exciting proposition. So they're offering him more money and bigger wages to try and stay at the club and sign a new contract, whereas Liverpool at the minute are just waiting to see what happens. The other side note to that as well, of course, Real Sociedad's Mikel Moreno is on Arsenal's potential shopping list as well. So they could lose both of their central midfielders this summer. So one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, we'll talk in more detail on that at 7 o'clock. Look, still to come here on this show, though. We're going to bring you the rest of the day's transfers, including the latest on Romelu Lukaku, Victor Osimhen and Calvin Phillips. Stay with us for that. A couple of big done deals to bring you from over the weekend. Mark, it's Chelsea and Tottenham that were making big deals, weren't they, over the weekend?
Yeah, record deal for Tottenham. Dominic Solanke, who signed a 6-year contract in North London. It was 55 million plus 10 million in add-ons, so a 65 million pound deal. Quite amazing. You'll like this, Vicky. Talk started Thursday afternoon. Deal agreed Friday afternoon. Saturday afternoon, deal announced. 48 hours, they managed to get that one sorted. So that's how you do a transfer deal. The other one, Chelsea, Pedro Neto signed a 7-year deal. Announcement came at the bridge at half-time. And just incidentally on the Dominic Solanke thing, a lot of Bournemouth fans saying, what's the situation with a potential replacement? Today, Bournemouth have had an offer rejected by Porto for the 24-year-old Brazilian. Evanilson. Scored 81 goals or assists in 154 games. So he's knows where the back of the net is. But yeah, at the minute, Bournemouth just deciding what to do after that offer was rejected.
OK, let's stay with Chelsea then. What do we know about Romelu Lukaku, Domish?
Yeah, so Napoli are still working on a deal to sign Romelu Lukaku. Antonio Conte is desperate to have him on board. He was managing him at Inter Milan back in 2021, of course, when they won the Scudetto title. But the cabin valuation still exists. Chelsea won around 43 million euros. Napoli want to start trading at around 30 million euros. But they need to do this one quickly because Victor Osimhen is a player who doesn't want to be at Napoli anymore. He's made it clear that he doesn't want to be at Napoli anymore, but they can't realistically have both Lukaku and Osimhen at the club at the same time because of their wages. We do know that PSG are interested, but not at the prices being quoted. So they're exploring both a permanent deal and a loan that might come with an obligation, because Napoli, ideal scenario, would want a permanent aspect of this deal to be included, be it a permanent deal or something that comes with an obligation as well. There is Saudi interest in him. Napoli would probably prefer to sell to Saudi Arabia because they know they'd get money straight away. But I think Osimhen's priority is to stay in European football's top 5 leagues and ideally play Champions League football as well.
All right. What about the Premier League new boys, Ipswich? They're showing a bit of their intent, aren't they, today?
They've been so ambitious during this transfer window. So many signings that they've made already. They're still in talks with Blackburn. It's been a long, drawn-out one over Sammy Szmodics, the Blackburn Rovers forward. But also, they're one of a number of clubs interested in that man on your screen there. That is Calvin Phillips, the Manchester City midfielder. Manchester City clearly listening to offers for a player who's still got 4 years left on his contract. We think Ipswich are probably exploring a loan first of all. He was, of course, on loan last season at West Ham United. Wasn't the most successful loan spell for him, but it hasn't stopped Ipswich wanting to be interested in a high-profile player like that to show their ambition. Everton have shown their interest earlier on in this transfer window, so definitely one to watch. Calvin Phillips maybe making another departure from the Etihad.
I'm staying with you. Fulham. News from them in terms of a search for a defender.
It seems like a big priority in this transfer window. They want to bring in a second central defender after Jorge Cuenca came in from Villarreal, the Spain under-21 international. They remain in talks with Crystal Palace over Joachim Andersen. £20 million was the bid. There's a big gap in valuation, so they continue talks with Aston Villa over Diego Carlos. They've made one bid for Carlos. That has been rejected, but talks are ongoing between Fulham and Palace and Fulham and Villa, and they're going to decide which one is worthwhile to go for.
I was going to ask you something about Aston Villa. Save it for 7 o'clock, because we will be back. That was just a little snapshot of what's gone on today. Stay with us. At 7 o'clock, we'll take you through much more in depth in all the transfers of today and all the done deals over the weekend as well, in the transfer show at 7 o'clock.